Alright folks, so you can see here I got the lower torso cover off. Got a few things I'm going to work on it. For one, we got a blowout situation here. That and that over there is completely destroyed. So what happened was when I went to this last con and I was raising him up after being in the trailer for a few hours, this got caught. Somehow it popped loose or popped outward. And it doesn't like this one has the notch. The newer design has a notch in here. I'm not seeing it on this one. So this must be the older design. And that notch is supposed to help kind of prevent it from moving. And anyway, it's caught and it got in this bind and then it exploded, as you can see here. Luckily, nobody really noticed it and it held, this side held up, so this held in place the whole time. No worry though, got these reprinted, ready to go. We'll get those put on there, and then I'm going to be working on these mechanisms, getting this to function as well as the door mechanism. And then we've got this here, which is starting to get put together. Don't know how far I'll get on that. We got the display ordered, so we'll at least get that put in there, get this assembled to some extent. Probably go ahead and place it in here. Get the servos put in here. So I've got the quiet servos ordered for the arms. I'm going to take those arm servos, I'm going to transform and transport them and put them into here. Since I needed more servos and I'd rather spend money. Same price. I got pretty much about the same price on those. I found them on eBay for a bulk deal. So I might as well spend a little bit, same amount of money, get a little bit of a better servo, a little stronger servo for the arms, and then put the other lesser servos, or louder servos, into this guy. So that's kind of the plan there. And then I'm going to take these, I'm going to fill these up with magnets. These could pretty much use every magnet there is to help support that. And yeah, so I got some of these pieces put together here, as you can see. So that's turning out real well. Got this assembled. I was able to print this TPU. My printer doesn't do like the greatest on it, but it actually turned out really nice. It's actually quite strong. So I did a second one. I mean, it's solid. I mean, it's got some. It's not perfect, but it's definitely solid. So that's good news on that. And because visually it doesn't matter, right? You'll never see it. So it just has to function. So you got that in there. Yeah. So we're gonna work on a bit of that. So here we go. A couple of things I sorted out on here. One, this right here was super tight, and I don't know why. So I took all these, I took the motor loose, and I thought, well, let's just see how the door moves without everything on it. And it was like really hard to move, especially closing. This one arm here was over tightened, so can't crank down on those things. That needs to be a little loose. Now, obviously that's really loose because that's up right now, but now I can move this door open and close pretty well. So we're gonna put it back together and see how it does. The other thing I noticed was this piece here on my print for some reason was lower than this. So these arms are rubbing across here. So I loosened those screws up and popped it up. Now it's higher than this. So yeah, just resistance everywhere. It's like everything's gonna be so perfect. There's no resistance. For now, there's no resistance on that door, so we're gonna put the motor back. All right, well, I think about got as good as I'm gonna get it with this design. I think something's gonna have to change. Because, okay, so opens great. When it goes to close, it acts like it's catching, but I know that door is completely free. Open, no problem. And I can get it'll close nice. I mean, as far as closing completely, but it just looks like it's painful. So if you look back here, use the light over here. Back here, it's gear. Let's see. So the opening is fine, but then when it goes to close, focus. You see how it's like it's catching. gear. If I take this centerpiece out, it'll open the door and close the door smoothly. But of course, it starts to bind on the other side because it doesn't have a way to keep it even. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Alright, so since that last video, have gotten this figured out. Ramon had helped me out with this. We took that TPU, and you notice there it's got a standoff on each side that evenly distributes the force onto this gear that is in there. And so what we've learned was that having it only push on one side, because the whole point of that TPU is if it gets it a bind, it's not going to break anything. It'll flex. So kind of like a rubber boot, if you will. So by having that rubber boot, though, only pushing on one side of the gear, it was causing the force to be distributed unevenly. So by putting it on both sides, making it sort of a it distributes that force more evenly, and now this thing will open and close really smooth. So we got that all worked out, and we'll so we'll continue on from here. Alright, so a little update on Johnny 5. As you've probably seen in some of my videos I've been putting out, I've been showing the console door kind of opening and closing, working on the inside panel. And basically this is a 3D printed part, and it has a switch and a couple of lights that go on there. And then on the inside of it you have the a display that sits in there, touch screen, capacitive touch, and then here at the top it'll have a couple of LED lights that'll shine into these cavities, which will have plexiglass over it and some indicator, some words that I guess sort of like a check engine light, if you will. It'll have some words in here that'll be illuminated in the event something, whatever those end up being, if it's a malfunction or power up. So working on that. Going to work on this plexi piece here in a minute. Got the racking, thanks to Ramon, got that working pretty well, helped me out on that. And then on this, this is all me. I printed out the black in vinyl using a Cricut, and then printed out the white in vinyl as well. Now you may say, well, in the movie he's got green over here, or red over here, and green over here, and red I think up here. But in part 2, if you look real close, it's actually all white. So I just wanted to be simplified this a little bit. I think the white gives it a real pop. So I'm just kind of going to follow that suit and go with the part 2 version. I've printed out the power button. Now this area is still being worked on a little bit. There is a button that will reside under this, but I think for now I'm not going to put it there until that gets a little more finalized. But at the end of the day, you have this ring, which I printed in both resin and PETG. The resin, it shrinks up, so it doesn't really do real well here, because this shrinks and the button shrinks together. They don't want to, one doesn't want to go inside the other. It requires a lot of post-processing. So I just decided, well, let's do the best of both worlds. The button is going to shrink when you resin print it, and resin printing does the best when it comes to the embossing here. So I did that in resin, and then I did the outside in PETG, which ended up working really well. So that button slides in and out real nicely. So I'm going to take those out and paint those next, and then once it's painted red, then I'll paint the inside of that power. I believe it is black, yeah. So usually, so we'll have to. That is going to be some touchy work, but we'll get it done. And then I'll also work on this plexi piece as well. So that's kind of where we're at with all this. The console, yes, the console of Johnny 5. Well, here we are, boys and girls, putting together Johnny 5's console, and it's going to be great. So let's look under the hood here a little bit, and how did I put this together? People have done this before. but I want to show you kind of what I've decided to do. So let's start with the front here. So this is a 3D printed part, obviously. And what I've done is I took a Cricut and used black vinyl and I cut this out. And it's got some bubbles here on the edges and stuff, but you're not going to see that once it's in the actual lower torso assembly. You won't see these holes either. They'll be up behind the console door, so, and the edge that's holding that door. So we'll show assembled here later on. But I put the black vinyl on there, did a cutout on it, then I did a cutout of the white. Now, in the first movie, this is green, this is red, and I think this is red up here. But in the second movie, it actually had this white cutout, as did it have the power. So in the first movie, it doesn't have anything on there. And another thing I noticed, by the way, if you hadn't noticed, is these colors. So in the second movie, it goes red, or in the first movie, it goes red, orange. But in the second movie, it goes red, orange this way. So it goes orange, red. So orange is on top, red's on bottom. So there's definitely different versions of this that were created, or they were modified later. But, you know, it's the movies. Like, you can only pick a version and go with it, and sometimes you can just do what I did, and it's sort of a hybrid, because the white and the power button are from the second movie, but the lights are in the order of the first movie. So there you go, right? So let's talk about the button here. So the button is resin printed. I did a red. I did this red, and I did this white. So I already had the white. And I think I may have got this from a store that no longer exists, actually. But anyway, we got the white there, and we got the red. I got this from Hobby Lobby. Actually, I think I got this from Michael's. I got that from Michael's. I got that from Hobby Lobby. So I did do a cherry red before. It was a little too dark, so I lightened it up, went with that color. And then I took some watercolor, and I kind of went over the power button a little bit. Didn't go down there as well as I wished. It probably needs to be embossed a little bit deeper so it actually take, but I think it turned out all right. You can see it, you can read it. So thank you, Titan Ross, for that tip. This is the white here, so this insert. So I did this in resin printing, but I did this in regular filament printing, PETG, and as everything else is in PETG as well. It just works out better that way. And then up here, we got the switch. Got the switch off eBay. These lights I've had for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, but they're available out there. All right, so let's look under here. So on the back side, I had to do a modification, and it looks worse than it really is, but I had to basically cut down both of these housings, and on that one, I just cut down the bottom part of the housing. And the reason is because it's got to clear this display here, which, yes, I will pull the film. I wanted to leave that protection on there while I was working around it, but I'll pull that film before I actually put it together. But this has got to go down in here and clear that. So I had to notch that out, but I wanted to leave it as much on there as I could. And then I took a couple of orange LEDs, or I'm sorry, an orange LED and a red LED. So the orange LED looks like this. I stuck it in the orange one. That way it's more, looks more incandescent that way. If you put a white LED in there, it whitewashes it a little bit. And then I put a red LED in here for that one. And then I just used hot glue. And I just hot glued them in. So that worked out really well. And we'll turn that on here and let you see that. And then the switch side, I just put wiring on that. You know, I have some ideas on how I'm going to use the switch. Basically, the switch is going to signal the Raspberry Pi to turn on the display in terms of at least showing something may already be on, but at least it'll read out like it's booting up, like in the first movie where he gets struck by lightning and then he hits that switch and both these lights come on, and then it starts scrolling up with information. So that'll be kind of the idea for that. And then under here you have this part. So this took a little, this took some time to figure out. And I wish I took some shots before I put it back together. So I'm going to take a moment and take this back apart so you can see what's underneath. All right, so this is what's under the hood. So what I did was I took some of this prototyping board here. You could say it was going to be a lip light at one point, and basically cut out these channels board, and then I mounted 3 LEDs per one, and then I used a resistor there. You can see the color coding on it if you're curious to what value I used. And then yeah, and so if I had to do this, oh, and then I used some hot glue, and I hot glued these down in here. So if I had to do this again, I think what I would do is I would buy some low profile LEDs to get them set back as far as possible, because the closer they are to the diffuser and everything, the more they want to, the light doesn't diffuse as well. But because the way this is assembled, you almost can't see those LEDs. You see a couple of bright spots, but it's really no different than it almost gives an incandescent feel. So it actually kind of works for it. But I think if I had to do it again, I think I would get lower profile ones. So then, I use this wax paper, which I've used on the lenses, and I stick that in there. And then I have this piece of, I guess it's like construction paper, I suppose you could call it. And I used this on a Cricut, and the Cricut cut this out. This was a challenge now because the lettering is so small. But the idea there is to black out everything but the letters. As you can see, now I push that down in there. That looks nice. And then I have this piece of plexiglass that I cut, and I'll stick that down in there. And then there you go. Then you have that. And then on the back side here, I used the same tint I used on the eyes. I just taped it on the back side, and then this will sit over it. So let me put this back together, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so we got it all, got it wired up here, got it back together. It's looking really good. Once again, I've still got the film on here. That's what you're seeing there. Take that off. I got a button coming, a actual mechanical button that's going to go behind this. Should have that coming today, so I'll do a follow-up video on that. You got to make sure, by the way, this white ring, you got to trim it, make sure it sits into the inset so it doesn't bow out the bottom. So I had to take care of that real quick. But look at that. That looks so cool. It really does. It really looks really cool. Let me show you what so there's the startup. So in the movie, we had it had like system startup, or you had malfunction. The words would change. So that's why I think there's probably more than one of these, or they had multiple inserts that put in there. So that's but for this, I'm just picking a couple of different functions and put those in there and then light them up, thinking the startup could come on when you hit this button, here, and he's starting up. The light could come on momentarily. If there's any codes that are thrown from any of the modules, malfunction could light up. The light's negotiable, right? I think these could come on when you hit the switch and turn the display on, like it does in the movie. As well as they could come on maybe when he's starting up, kind of like a car does, right? They both flash on for a second and then they eventually go out. Something like that, right? Could mix and match. Malfunction, the red light could come on with malfunction or whatever, or the orange light, since the orange light's kind of lined up with that. So it's kind of dealer's choice, if you will, on that. But here's got it to where I can do these individually. So that ends up working out pretty well. You can kind of see there's some hot spots in there, right? It shows it more on the video than it does in person. In person, it looks pretty neat. But on here, you definitely see the R and the P and the U a little bit hotter than the rest. That's because the LED's in the back. But once again, I think it actually gives it some character. I think it kind of plays homage to the, back then whenever, you had incandescents. It wasn't perfect, and I like that. So, yeah, I think we're almost done with that. Working on the graphics right now. Got a friend working on that, so we'll see how that goes. Some more to come. Get the button put together here. Looks pretty dang good. So it has this button on the inside. Got a few of those. And yeah, it's working pretty good. So what I ended up doing is I just took a piece, I just designed a flat, round piece of plastic here as an insert, and I stuck it into the bottom of this white insert, and yeah, it fits perfectly. It keeps it center. And then I took the very bottom of the switch and I did go ahead and carve that off there to where it's flush, so that this could go down there as further as it can, so there's no gap around it. So you can see almost there's a gap there. So if that's flush with this, then this comes up above here a little bit, and you can see a little bit of a gap. So push it all the way down, carve that off, cut that out because I forgot to design in an outlet there, so I just went and just cut it and brought the wires out. So now we'll put it back in that. Oh, on this, I also, on the inside, I did get some paint on it. I had to go ahead and get that back off, and then I used my razor blade knife and carved the inside a little bit just to give it some leeway, because this does tend to want to rock. So if it does, it catches one side and it sticks. So I had to make that opening a little bit wider there. And then I sanded it down, and now it works great. It doesn't stick or nothing. Perfect. And the last thing I did was, once I put it into here, well, even before that, I took a little bit of CA glue and I tacked, since these are not one piece, and maybe a later design will have this as a part of this white piece. But I went ahead and put some I put like a tack of CA glue there, here, here, and here, to keep this black piece from spinning. And then once I stuck this in the larger piece, I just put a little bit more CA glue there, 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 and there. You can see it's a little wet still. And I didn't want to like make it super permanent, but enough where it won't spin and won't pop out. Then in order to hold the wires in, I just took some Kapton tape and I put it on the back side just like that. So this is the screen inside the lower torso covering. And this is just running a test program, checking out the lights, making sure the switches and the buttons work. At this point, there's no screen to show, but it's coming along. So stay tuned. There'll be more to come on this.